Hi, I'm Melanie Ann Phillips, co-creator of the Dramatica theory and software, and welcome to another exciting episode of Dramatica Unplugged, the ongoing series of programs that delves deeply into the secrets of story structure and storytelling to help you improve your writing with or without using the Dramatica software. Tonight's program is entitled Genre. Genre. I love to say that word, genre. Okay, what is genre? And what can Dramatica give you that will help you work in the genre to which you are attracted? Well, genre is a really nebulous word. Why? Because it incorporates so many different things. For example, if you look at the different commonly named genres, like a Western, well, a Western would theoretically have to take place in the American West in a certain period of time. And you would expect to have certain activities in it, like maybe some kind of shootout would be in a Western, or perhaps something to do with roping cattle, all the things that you would associate as the activities that would be appropriate in a Western. Some Westerns, however, don't have that kind of material. If you look at a Western like The Shootist with John Wayne, it has a very strange flavor to it for a Western. And of course, such things as the science fiction Outland with Sean Connery has been labeled as high noon in outer space. So it had the feel of a Western, but it wasn't set in the American West at all. Whereas High Noon itself doesn't have much of the feel of a traditional Western either. Look at some of Clint Eastwood's Westerns. They range all the way from Josie Wales and Unforgiven, which is very unusual, to some of the spaghetti Westerns he did, some of the early things that made him a star. But you consider them all, and there's something about them that makes them seem like a Western, and primarily it's their setting, the American West, and gunplay, and cowboys, and horses, and such things, sagebrush, desert. Look at a love story. Now, a love story doesn't talk about the setting. A love story is talking about the relationship between two or perhaps more people. And a love story describes how that relationship grows, and the highlights and the lowlights, and whether it comes out with the boy and girl getting together, or the boy and boy getting together, or girl, or the avocado and the salamander, whatever you happen to have, whether they get together in the end. Okay? Bad pun there. I won't even use it. Okay. The thing is that when you're dealing with genre, it can be any number of things, from the way you tell the story, such as a mystery, or what impact you want to have on your audience, like in a thriller or a horror story, or the place that takes place, like a Western, or the relationship among the characters, as in a love story or a buddy picture, or even something like a science fiction, which is dealing with a particular subject matter. So how can you define what genre is if every time you name a different genre, it's made up of different things? Well, that's been kind of the problem. It's like going into the video store to rent a video. You go up and down the shelves, and they have different racks for action pictures and adventure. Some put action adventure in one place. Then you've got drama, you've got horror, you've got maybe thriller, maybe thrillers mixed in with horror, sci-fi, just down the list. Comedies. All of these are categories. But how many different kinds of comedies are there? There's comedies like what Monty Python would do. There's comedies like something charming, a charming comedy that maybe would be a child's approach to something. Okay, so genre can be many different things, and I don't think you could say that traditionally there's a fixed definition for it. The best we can come up with in Dramatica is to say that genre is the feel of the finished work. Now that includes the story structure and the storytelling, whether it be the encoding that determines whether it's set in the Old West or set in outer space. It includes the storytelling techniques such as story weaving, where it will become a mystery in how you let out your exposition, or in terms of reception, knowing what the audience expects and falling into a particular formula, like a romance, for example, a romance novel. They're not all alike, but you expect to get a certain something from them. Now, here's the interesting thing. You know, you don't always have to have exactly the same kinds of things to create exactly the same kind of feel. For example, Have you ever been made happy by something that was completely different than something else that made you happy? Of course you have. We become happy because of a lot of different things. So if we're saying genre means the overall feel, the feel of the finished work when it's all completed, structure and storytelling included, all that stuff mixed into one, well then we could say that you might have a Western, and then you might have Outland taking place in space, and even though it's in space and doesn't have any of the setting elements that you expect in a Western genre, it still feels like a Western. So that Outland and High Noon might be very close to each other on a shelf, arranged by feel rather than some arbitrary decision as to whether it has the Old West in it or whether it's in outer space. Yet here we find them in science fiction on one hand and in the Western column on the other, far apart in the video store. Another kind of problem comes forth for the writer, though, the author, who is trying to work in a particular genre. If a producer came to you, or an editor at a book company, and said, I want to commission a book, I want you to do a war story. And then you would sit down and write a war story? Or would you ask, well, do you want Saving Private Ryan or MASH? You know, it's going to have a big difference on the way it's approached. It could be a funny war story. It could be Gone with the Wind. It could be about relationships against a background of a nation at war. Or it could be something like Saving Private Ryan with the action, or The Longest Day, or Platoon, or any one of the other war stories that's been told. Each has a slightly different kind of flavor. So just knowing that the genre is, it's a war story, that doesn't really help you a lot. You need something a little more precise to write from. And then once you've written, people can classify it any way they want. They can say, well, this feels mostly like this. And those who just go with the traditional ones will throw anything with Old West in it in the Westerns, whether it's Blazing Saddles or whether it's High Noon. And then they'll take, again, something like Outland and throw that in with the other science fictions like 2001. And then they'll take something that's more philosophical and put that in its own category, where the philosophical thing should probably be put close to 2001, and where High Noon should be put right next to Outland, and where Blazing Saddles should be put next to Young Frankenstein. So you see, what happens afterwards is not really important to the author. What's important is, how do you write in a particular genre? Well, if the object of the game for the author is to create a particular impact on the audience, or to develop a particular feel, then you need some precise tools. And that's exactly what Dramatica has to offer for you.